Welcome to the Live Life Well podcast for busy women. As a busy mum myself, I understand how hard it can be to look after ourselves. But hopefully this is a space for you to take time out, find connection, and get some simple takeaways to live life well, mind, body and soul. Let's jump in. Welcome to another episode of the Live Life Well podcast for busy women. And this is just your invitation to slow down for half an hour, grab a cuppa and get some really simple takeaways to how you can look after yourself as you deserve to do, because you're very precious and important. So we're going to be talking with Billie Pursglove today. Billie from Billie Rose Therapy. Billie, you're a counsellor, a therapist, and you run workshops and online courses as well as coaching people with therapy and counselling one-to-one in person and online. Is that right? You're based in Matlock, but you do your work online as well. And you've got a focus on mental health, well-being and awareness, which I love. They're all really important things. And it's so lovely to have you on tonight. And we're going to be talking about some really important things. But going to just say hello and tell us maybe a bit about your journey into this kind of work and why you're passionate about it. So yeah, just say hello and tell us a bit about yourself.
Yes, thank you for a lovely introduction. So I've been a counsellor since 2017. I kind of fell into it, I suppose, from being unsure what to do. Didn't know if uni was for me, got an apprenticeship in admin, but the apprenticeship was with a counselling service. And it was from that sort of point I saw the differences in sort of clients as they came for their sessions, because I would just meet them in the waiting room, make them a cuppa, and then go back into the office. But because you'd sort of see the same people week after week, and you'd see the sort of improvements in them, they'd be a bit chattier as they start to feel better and that kind of thing. That really, I don't know, stuck with me, the sort of effect the counsellors were having on these people. And I started to think, like, I'd love to be able to do that. And there was obviously loads of the right people to speak to. So I had a chat with a few of them, assumed I was going to have to go to uni, but I didn't. I went to Buxton College and did it all at night. So I still got the experience working in the environment while I went to college in the evenings. And how many years later? 6-7 years later. I love it. And it's varied, it's empowering. I meet so many amazing people. And it's always changing.
Yeah, never a dull day, I'm sure. And it's great just to hear your story of how you can achieve your goals around what you're already doing. We don't have to always drop everything and study full time, but there is a way to go after your passions if you kind of set your mind to it. So that's a really good message. And I can tell from our chats we've had before how passionate you are about your work and how you just love seeing that difference in people, and you've been part of their journey, kind of empowering people to feel better. And with that in mind, I'd love to know what your take is on sort of living life well. What does that mean to you?
Oh, I love this part of your podcast when I listen to it, because I think it's amazing how everyone has a different view on what that means. So I was having to think about it. And I think for me, it comes down to like self-awareness, and I suppose being aware of your own self, your own well-being, your thoughts, your feelings, your sensitivities, your trigger points, your energy levels, all those kind of things. So having an awareness of those so that you know how to nurture them. So if you know that social situations really drain you, that you can sort of limit how much of that you take on, and have the confidence and assertiveness to turn things down if you know that they leave you feeling really fatigued. Having an awareness of how much rest your body needs, what foods serve you well and what foods make you feel really sluggish, so that you can, because I think it's everything can be such a domino effect. So if you have a rubbish night's sleep and then you can't be bothered to prep the food that you know makes you feel really positive, so then you grab the quick things, the convenient things, but then feel sluggish on top of a rubbish night's sleep. And then you might think, oh, I'll not go for that run or whatever it is. And then you probably don't sleep as well that following night because you've not done the things that might tire you out properly, I suppose, rather than it just being that sort of almost like boredom tiredness and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think it's really for me about sort of self-awareness. So you understand what you need to live life well for yourself, because it's so different from one individual to the next.
Yeah, I love that answer. And like you say, I love hearing different people's answers. I love that part of the podcast too. I love hearing everyone's different take on it. But I love that. And I think any change we want to make in life starts with that self-awareness, doesn't it? And even before that, it's like self-acceptance, isn't it? I mean, I think as women especially, we can be really hard on ourselves. We're really good at knowing all the things we think are wrong with us or the things we're not doing well enough. But actually, that's not a positive drive for change, is it, when you've got that sort of shame and that negativity about yourself? But taking the time to know ourselves, that takes intention, doesn't it? And sometimes we can be so busy or allow ourselves to be so busy that we don't stop and slow down, because sometimes we don't really want to know ourselves. We don't really like ourselves, which is really sad. But I think doing that work with you or by yourself, you know, finding someone to help you slow down and stop and take stock of who you are and what you need, like you say, and understanding that isn't the same as the next person, is that we don't all need the same thing. We're not all made the same. But yeah, knowing ourselves and knowing what we need to feel well takes a little bit of time and intention, but it's so worth doing, isn't it? It's so worth doing that work.
Yeah. I think what you said about sort of being busy can almost become like they think that means they're doing well. So if they've got loads on, they're being really productive, they're busy at work, they're busy at home, they're busy in their social life, if they've got children, you know, it's all their things as well.
Yeah.
And it can almost, I feel like busyness has become this badge of honor that, you know, people have started to glamorize. And it's like, we've lost the sense that rest is productive, that we need that time to do those things really, really well. And you hear it so often, like, oh yeah, I'm really busy, and it's sort of, you're almost expected to tell people you're busy, and then people don't seem to talk about slowing down or taking that time. So I think sometimes the first step in therapy with the client is normalizing that, you know, normalizing that slowing down doesn't mean you're not being successful or that you're not as good as someone else because so-and-so is busier than you. So it feels like a real barrier. I don't know if it's sort of COVID that brought it out with the sort of option to work from home, that you could kind of do more, or you save time on your commute, so you could either work longer or you could do more before work or after work. So yeah, I think that sort of busyness and productivity sort of become almost like a belief that means you're doing well.
Yeah, it's where we can sort of get our self-worth, isn't it? And we might be afraid to seem lazy if we're not busy all the time. And it's this modern life, I think. I think modern life, the society we live in, the sort of capitalist, consumerist society tells us, that's the subliminal message, isn't it? That your worth is in your productivity. But actually your worth is just in who you are, isn't it? Like, it's what you bring as a person. And it's knowing that, like you say, identifying that and acknowledging that, and then recognizing that rest is good and it doesn't make you lazy, and slowing down to think about who you are, because we're going to be talking about kind of how as women we go through stages in life and they can mean different things, and how we become sort of stuck and overwhelmed. But we change, don't we? We change throughout the different stages of our life, and sometimes we lose who we are, so we forget what we need, or we don't even know who we need because we don't know who we are anymore. So there's something just about slowing down, isn't there? Taking stock and asking yourself. It sounds silly, like talking to yourself, but like you talk to a friend, like kindly, like, oh, are you okay? Like, what do you need right now? What is it your body needs to feel well? Do you need to get an early night? Do you need to drink some water? Do you need to cook yourself a healthy meal? Do you need to speak to a friend? So yeah, just even that moment in the day, just being like, check in, are you okay? What can I do for you? As we would do for our friends, our family. We're good for doing it for others, aren't we? But not always for ourselves. And that's a big message of this platform, that Yes, those things are good, and we give you full permission to slow down and rest and look after yourself.
It's interesting because I always sort of try to use that as a way to help people address the way they view things. They sort of say, like, would you say that to a friend? Would you place that expectation? And it's always like, God, no, I'd never say that to a friend. But and then inviting them to think about, why do you deserve to speak to yourself differently if you wouldn't say that to a friend? And that can be really enlightening for people to sort of just have that moment, just a question why they don't speak to themselves the way they would speak to a friend or a loved one.
Absolutely. Our internal dialogue can be awful, can't it? And sometimes we don't even notice how badly we're speaking to ourselves. But just starting to notice and to change that dialogue can be really powerful, can't it? So we're going to be talking about this idea of how, as busy women, we can, at those different stages of life, sometimes become stuck. And when we were chatting before we did this podcast, we were talking about how that's something you've sort of noticed in your work, a kind of pattern, and that's something that you help people with, is sort of moving forward. But why do we, if you're listening, you might recognize this idea of just, maybe part of what we're talking about is kind of losing sight of who you are and what you need and what you want in life. But what causes us to become stuck in life, and what does that kind of look like?
So I think it can vary so much from person to person. I think in my work, I see it a lot more with women. And I think if you think about how it essentially comes down to how we perceive external factors and our views on them. And that could be messages, the things that influence that could be messages from like the generation above. And if we think about how much has changed since that generation were doing life at this age in their 20s or 30s, so much is different. But if they're sort of instilling messages based on their experiences, they don't fit with all of the external factors that we've got now. Relationships aren't as traditional, they aren't as necessary. It used to be that women needed a man. We don't anymore. So we don't have to find a partner, we don't have to marry, don't have to move in with anyone, we could live alone. So there's so many things that are different, but I feel that society isn't as accepting of all these new ways of doing things. I think it can also depend on sort of area and location. I feel like the more rural settings seem to be stuck in those sort of old ways a little bit more. But if we perceive those external situations in a way that makes us feel that we're not aligning with them, that can make you feel really stuck, because you're thinking, well, I should be with a partner, or I should be in a certain career, or comparing with other people. It might be siblings, that can be really tough, other family members, and thinking that you're not where you should be because other people around you are, in your eyes, further along. But they might not be. But if you perceive everyone around you as being further along, maybe because they've got in a relationship, or they bought a house with someone, they've just got a promotion, we can start to feel that we're stuck because we sort of put everyone else on a bit of a pedestal and think that what they're doing is really successful. And then we start to play down our own successes, our own achievements. So comparison can be such a big part of getting stuck, because instead of thinking about what we want, we think about what everyone else is doing. And it's really hard to achieve the things that we don't truly want, because the motivation isn't there, the drive isn't there. We're doing things because we think we should. And there is such a big difference between doing something we feel we should do and doing something we want to do. So if we're doing it because we want to, it's going to be a lot more motivating. If we're doing it because we think we should, because someone else has just got the promotion, or moved in with their partner or something like that, we're not doing it because we really want to, and then we're not aligning with ourselves, so we can feel sort of stuck.
Yeah, I see that. It's really interesting. I hadn't really thought about it before you described it like that, Billie. It's that sort of tension, isn't it, between the external pressures of society and our families and a comparison, social media, like thinking we should be living our lives like that person. And I can really see how that could cause, I think, dissonance. Is that the right word? Just popped into my head.
Yeah.
I don't know. And that's really hard. Yeah, when you're sort of got one foot in what you want and one foot in what others are wanting. So you can't really move then, can you? Because you're literally being pulled into different directions. And I can see how that would really lead to frustration, almost like depression, because you're not living life fully in the way that you want to, in the way that makes you who you are, the way that makes you come alive. And it's really interesting that you say that you see this more in women, because I feel like we naturally are more like caretakers, more not saying that men don't care about others, but you know, it's our role, it's our nature to sort of care for others and to not put our needs first. That's what we've been kind of told we should do. But also because we care about other people. So yeah, I can see how that becomes really difficult. But we also do have those dreams and those passions and things they want to do that help us be sort of feel fulfilled. So I can see how that kind of leads to you kind of losing yourself. Is that what you kind of see, like that kind of loss of connection to who you truly are, and then that leading to kind of mental health issues potentially?
Yeah, because it can really lower your self-esteem. It can lower your confidence. If you're doing things because you feel you should, that tends to add this sort of sense of pressure, rather than, you know, if you're doing something you really want, you've got that end goal in mind and you think about what can I do to get there? And if it's something you really want, that process is more enjoyable. If you're doing it because someone that was in your year at school has just shared on Facebook some kind of life event, whether they've just announced that they've got engaged, they're having a baby, because it's all the positive stuff online, isn't it? So if you're putting pressure on yourself to start dating because everyone in your year on school seems to be announcing engagements or buying houses, that process isn't going to be very enjoyable at all, because it's not coming from a place where you're thinking, I want to go and meet someone. It's coming from a place where you're telling yourself you should. If it's about, it could be career related, and everyone around you, it feels like everyone around you is getting promoted. So you think, oh, I'll stay in this job and I'll keep working my way up. I might hate the job, but it would feel like a step back if you left or something like that. When is it really a step back if that job makes you feel miserable every day? But you think, oh, well, everyone else is higher up by this age, so we stay, and then we're not happy. So then we've got low mood. We might find it more stressful if we don't enjoy the job. So then we're going to start seeing knock-on effects on our mental health overall. And that again can be that sort of domino effect. If those sort of things, feeling stuck, starts to affect your mood, we tend to see this pattern where people start to retreat. They take themselves away from the people that help them. So they sort of turn down social plans. They might stop reaching out. They might stop looking after themselves as well. They might stop going to the gym because they feel too run down after work. But then they're missing out on something that really serves them. So it can be that sort of domino effect in this situation. And then their mental health just continues to deteriorate, because all the things that boost those happy hormones, your serotonin, your dopamine, your oxytocin, you've taken yourself away from. So then that decline continues, and then you can feel like you're stuck in a vicious circle, because that negative inner voice can be so much louder and you're not doing anything that you enjoy.
Yeah, I can see that, how that becomes that vicious cycle, and how, yeah, there's a cost to our well-being of not being in the flow of what we're meant to be doing, of not doing the things that we're kind of called to do. And we're kind of taught, aren't we, through school and to society that we should prioritize like career, income, status, but these aren't necessarily the things that are going to actually make us happy or bring us joy, are they? So
No,
yeah,
I
I guess
think
it's sort of,
that's a really good point about sort of school. I think
mm,
you're made to believe you need to choose the career you want to stay in. When the reality is that you absolutely don't. Like you don't need to be able to figure out at the age of like, I think they start asking you to think about it at like 15, 16. And to choose what you're going to go and do at uni and how that's going to get you into a career that you can stay in. And I think that so those beliefs are setting in when you're at a really impressionable age. And then if other people are doing it around you, it's all being reinforced. And obviously, if that serves you, if that is what you want to do, that's great. But that isn't the case for everyone. And the people that don't want to do that should be able to just leave, find the thing that they do want to do and change.
Yeah, it's quite an outdated belief system, isn't it? That we're meant to choose a career at 15 and then stay in that till we're 60. Like that's just not realistic. People don't stay with the same firm and get a gold watch anymore, do they? And we shouldn't feel like you have to. We shouldn't feel like we're ever stuck in a situation. And even if you're 16 or you're 60 and you're listening to this, you definitely can change. We're not trees. I always say that. We're not trees. You can move. We can move. But I think where it becomes really complicated as women is when you've got all that pressure, to have a career, have a nice house, have a nice car, but also you're meant to do the housework and look after your children and look after your parents and go to the gym and look good. And like that's when it gets really, really complicated. And when I was thinking about our chat tonight and thinking about this idea of becoming stuck, I could just almost see it as like being frozen, like women becoming frozen in that kind of fight or flight state, because we're maybe stuck where we don't want to be, but maybe we're also like stuck because we're completely overwhelmed. Do you see that in your practice as well? Just women just overwhelmed by the demands of life?
Absolutely. I think it is moving where there are a lot more, I suppose, equal parents, relationships where it isn't just that mum goes part-time when the kids need looking after a maternity leave finishes, that it's more shared and that kind of thing. But there is this sort of, I think workplaces, it still kind of enforces that it's the mum that should reduce their hours and almost sort of questioned when the dad goes in and says, I'd like to go part-time, almost like these shocked faces and questions asked that shouldn't really be asked because they're still a parent. I think the sort of expectations on the mum to be the one that remembers everything seems to be a pattern I see a lot. They're the ones that are remembering that they've got a kid's party at the weekend and they need to go and get a present, that they need a football kit for Sunday morning, that it's tennis on Tuesday night and all that kind of thing. So even if it's not that they're taking them to everything, from the women I've worked with, there's a definite pattern that I've noticed where they're expected to sort of dictate it all. So trying to hold all that in your head for your children, your own schedule, possibly husband's schedule, before you add your own work, your own hobbies, enjoyments, all those things you just mentioned there, sort of trying to eat well, exercise, and fit all those things in is so overwhelming. And it's not sustainable. But everything carries on. So you carry on trying to remember everything. And then you can burn out. And it's not work-related burnout. It's personal life burnout, because it's all of that trying to juggle it. It might change from one week to the next, and you've got to try and navigate that change. That's just so overwhelming. So you just sort of think, well, if I just stop doing that, if I stop going to that fitness class, or I'll stop going to the book club, or whatever it is, that'll free some space up. And that's where I start to see this pattern of women losing themselves because they choose to put their own things on hold to free up some headspace, but prioritize everybody else before their own stuff. And then that lowers their mood because they're not doing the things they want to do.
I hear you. I hear you. That sounds like my life right now. And shout out to the amazing men in our life. You know, men are also working really hard and doing all the things. But I think it kind of goes back to us being those sort of caretakers, doesn't it? We do naturally just carry those things a bit more, that kind of mental load of remembering all the things, of being concerned about the people in our life and thinking about them as well as our things. So it's a heavy load to carry for sure. And that does take its toll. And like you say, if we're not balancing that with these habits that help us nurture ourselves and take care of ourselves and energize us, then we're gonna get burnt out, no doubt. And then what's everyone gonna do? So with all that in mind, like that's a lot that we're all carrying as women. How then, considering that there's not always many things we can drop, we can always like jiggle our schedules and maybe look at how we can be a little bit less busy, but there's still going to be work, there's still going to be family, there's still going to be jobs to do. How can we start to just bring in those sort of self-care habits as a foundation, or just, start to find ourselves again and rediscover what we do need? Like, how can we carve out time, or how can we prioritize that, bearing in mind we still have all the stuff going on? That sort of sounds like an impossible question I'm asking you, Billie. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
I think sometimes it's giving yourself a moment to actually recognize that there are things that can help. So if we're just on this sort of hamster wheel of life, we're just constantly moving. So I think the first thing to think about is, where can you find little pockets of time to just evaluate what's going on, how you're doing, what needs to be done, who's involved. So thinking about where you can find that time. And, something as simple as either getting up sort of 5-10 minutes earlier and just giving yourself those 5 minutes to just think about your day, rather than it sort of being getting up, and then it might be that you're straight away making sure the kids are up, making sure they've got their uniform, making sure that there's toast for everyone for breakfast, or whatever that sort of first step is. If that first step is all about everybody else, you've not had any time for yourself yet. And it doesn't need to be that you're running yourself a bath and putting a face mask on half an hour before everyone gets up. Just taking a few minutes just to recognize how you're doing, what you've got on, can really help. Something that has worked with quite a lot of clients is having like a diary so that you can see like your whole week on one page, and you can almost use it as a to-do list, or you might write on there what is on, that it's someone's got football, or you've got a doctor's appointment, or you mustn't, even just things like, I mustn't forget to get that chicken out the freezer. If you can put those things somewhere, you've taken a bit of control, and it's not just in your head. Because if you're expecting yourself to remember it, you're always going to try and hold it there. We can only think about one thing at a time. No matter how good we think we are at multitasking, we can only think about one thing at a time. So if you're trying to hold all of those things, you always say to people, it's like someone keeps putting pebbles or something in your hand, and you've only got so much room. So if there's somewhere where you can put anything that is on your mind and give it a day, because if you're thinking, tomorrow I mustn't forget to get the chicken out of the freezer, you don't need to think about that yet. But if you're worried about forgetting about it, you're going to try and hold it in your mind. So if you can take those 5 minutes and just jot anything down, or it might be that you've done something that's already on, it's only Tuesday and it's on Thursday, but you've already done it, and then you can tick that off. Doesn't take long. It just gives you that little bit of space to take control, essentially, of what's in your head. So having those 5-10 minutes, just setting your alarm and keeping that diary on your bedside table or something like that can really help.
Yeah, that's so good, and that makes it a really achievable way to start thinking about yourself, because it's kind of like that has those Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you can't meet your basic needs, if you're not meeting them, then you're not going to think about your self-care or what else you need. But if you can just get that stuff out your head, like you say, onto paper, then you can start to think maybe by taking like maybe 5 minutes in the morning, but then at the weekend take half an hour for yourself, and then maybe once a month take a day for yourself, but start small with small like achievable steps. And the last podcast I did was about breath work, and the guest I had on, Jackie, was saying that as well, like start with 5 minutes a day. So I'm kind of imagining in my head getting up 10 minutes earlier, be writing your to-do list for the day, and then taking 5 minutes to just breathe, and that would be an amazing way to start your day. But it's only 10 minutes out your day, and as busy as we all are, I think we could potentially find that. I don't know about you as well, maybe thinking about taking like half an hour a weekend on a Sunday night, maybe to sort of plan the week, and then you're getting even more on top of it, aren't you? So you're 5 minutes a day to plan your day and start your day well, but then taking a little bit longer maybe at the start of the week, and then that could be like a monthly thing. And like it's just starting small and increasing those steps, isn't it? And then finding that time.
Absolutely. And I think when it's all written down as well, it can be really easy to communicate if you're feeling really overwhelmed. If it is that you just need to turn to your partner and sort of say, like, there's so much in my head. Is there anything you can take off me, or could you do this? Then you can literally just show them, like, this is everything that I need to do this week. Is there anything you could do? Or because then it's sometimes really hard to articulate it when we feel really overwhelmed. So if it's all there, it's easier for people to help you as well, because it might be that help's available, you've just not utilised it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that.
I
was going to say, like, asking for help could be another really big step, because I think that's something we're not always the best at doing as busy women. Sometimes it almost becomes like, that badge of honor, like you're talking about, the busyness, like, I'm the one spinning all the plates, I'm the one doing everything. But it's okay to not be a victim or be a martyr all the time. I'm not saying that we are, but sometimes we can, like, sort of take on that role, can't we? Like, we're doing everything and all life's so hard and so busy, but there's maybe people in our lives that want to help us, who maybe don't understand how much we are carrying and who'd be willing to sort of share a little bit of that. So asking your partner, saying, these are all the jobs we need to do this week, like, what can you take, what can I take? And I'm sure, like, we'd all feel a lot better and a lot lighter if we did that.
And often it can be that we're doing a lot of mind reading and a lot of predicting and making assumptions when it comes to these things. It might be that people are assuming that you're fine because you're just getting on with it, and they think, oh, she's ace, she does all this and she's not bothered. But they don't probably see the time when you do get really overwhelmed.
Yeah.
On the flip side, I think if it is that mum's gone part-time, dad still works full-time, it can almost be seen that, oh, they've got enough on. I don't work as much as them, so I should do all of these things. When actually they're very, usually what I've found when I've had these kind of conversations with clients, they're happy to help. They just didn't realise that help was needed because they just got on with it. So having those opportunities to communicate that actually, if they remember to just get the chicken out of the freezer, it's one less thing for them to think about.
Absolutely. And it all helps, doesn't it? Every little helps. Everything we can get out of our heads and share or write down helps us clear our heads. And then as we start to do that, do you think that will create more space in our lives for us to then sort of start to think about ourselves, to sort of get to know ourselves again at whatever stage we're at? Maybe our life has changed through becoming mothers or losing people or changing careers. Like, we're sort of reconnecting with ourselves then, aren't we? Making that space to think about what we need now that our load is a little bit more manageable.
Yeah, so I think working out what windows of time you've got to do something, and I think the thing to think about is what you want to do. Doing it because you want to do it, not because you think you should. So if you're torn between going to bed half an hour earlier and having half an hour with a book, or going to a spin class after work on a Wednesday, and you're thinking, I should go to the spin class because I should really do some exercise, but actually what you really want to do is have half an hour earlier in bed and read the book. The thing with making these changes is the easier they are, the better your outcomes. So if you start off with something you don't truly want to do, it's going to be hard. And if it's hard, generally, we don't really do it. or we do it and we don't enjoy it, so we think I'm not going to do it again. So really thinking about how you can upgrade your week in the easiest way possible. And if that is an earlier bedtime with a book, do it. There's no expectation, because those expectations are your own. So anything will be an improvement on where you were if you were feeling stuck. So it doesn't have to be this big drastic thing that's going to achieve dropping a dress size or being able to run a half marathon because your sister did last year. If you just want a bit of time, making space for something that feels achievable is going to be the best way to give it a go, because it's really hard to give yourself that time if you've been used to giving everyone else all of your time. So something in the house is often easy to start with because we're not factoring in travel time. If it's just that we are going to bed half an hour earlier, we are only claiming an extra half an hour. And then when we realise that was okay, no one missed me, the house didn't fall apart, the kids didn't scream the house down because dad did bedtime or anything like that, you can do it again and you can have that time. And then it might be that one week you think, oh, I might go to that spin class and give it a go. Because once you start to do those little things for you and feel a little bit better in yourself, the things that at first felt a little bit more daunting might start to feel a bit more achievable. And then it's about trial and error. If you go to the spin class and absolutely despise it, don't go back. Find a class that works for you. Try swimming or Pilates class, or even things like, there's so much online now, like yoga and Pilates, that you can just follow along in your pajamas before you go to bed for 20 minutes. But you've taken that time for you. And it's really important not to disregard those kind of little habits and think that, well, if you're not going to the class or you're not going to the gym to do those things, that they're not going to be worthwhile, because they absolutely will. If it's achievable to do it at home on YouTube instead of going to the gym, do it.
Yeah, I love that message of, it comes back to knowing yourself and what you need in that moment, in that day, doesn't it? Like, we can tell ourselves that it has to be all or nothing. I have to go to a spin class 5 days a week, or there's no point in me exercising. But actually that can be really stressful on our nervous systems. Like you say, forcing yourself to do things that are not what you need in that moment, when actually what we need is maybe rest, or something that's gentle, it's going to soothe our nervous systems, rather than pushing ourselves to the limits. It's that sort of idealizing the busyness and the pushing yourself and striving, isn't it, all the time? But actually, when we slow down and tune into ourselves, we're going to learn what we need, and then we're going to have more energy and motivation to do those bigger goals, like you say. So I really love that message. It's a message of kindness to yourself, really, isn't it? Of, like we said, knowing yourself, accepting where you're at, tuning into what you need, and being okay with that, being okay with what it is you need in that moment. And as you rest and take care of yourself, you will naturally want to do more. It's a bit like I coach people with their food, and obviously we all know salad's good for us, but sometimes you just need a bit of cake, don't you? Like sometimes that's what you need in the moment, or a glass of wine. So yeah, absolutely. So hopefully the message you're hearing tonight is that we see you in your busyness, and we see the pressure on you to do all the things, and we see how you're showing up for other people, but we just want you to know that you're worth showing up for. You're worth getting to know, because you're amazing, and you're worth taking care of. Yeah. And as you do that, just trust in that process of slowing down, taking care of yourself, will give you more energy and more motivation to do all the other stuff as well, won't it?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's so good, Billie. But I'm just wondering quickly, just about those people listening that might just feel so stuck or so overwhelmed, or they've just lost themselves so much. What can they do? Like, obviously reaching out, asking for help, but is that maybe where you would come in? Maybe speaking to someone professional, like a counsellor or therapist, might be a good place to start when you're just so overwhelmed you can't sort of see the wood for the trees.
Absolutely. So I think therapy can be really good if you almost won't take the time. So if it is that it just keeps going, that hamster wheel just keeps going, it can be really useful to create a space where you're accountable because you've made the appointment. It's your time because you booked it. And to have that time to explore it with someone else can really help. Someone outside of the situation, they're not there to judge. You've not got to impress me. I don't want to hear how busy you are and how glamorous that might feel. I want to know what you want and where you've got stuck, and explore your options. It can actually be a really exciting process, because when you start to see someone have that realization that they can take time for themselves, and then they start doing that, and you see these little glimmers every time they come back, and the excitement when they tell you about what they've tried or what they've done. But it can just be quite difficult to really explore that on your own. It's achievable, it's absolutely doable. But often what I've noticed with people that have come to therapy because of that, they've been trying to sort of understand it on their own, is a pattern of just sort of discounting and disregarding everything they start to think about. So thinking that, well, that's really important, so I need to carry on doing that. That makes me a good person because I always do overtime at work, and then because I do overtime, we've got a bit more money and we can take the kids on a longer holiday. So it can almost become that you end up justifying everything that's keeping you stuck, and then you almost think that, well, these are really good things, so carry on doing them, and then you stay stuck. So having a therapist with you to sort of challenge that and say, but what is more valuable, time or money, if it is sort of overtime theme. There's really lovely ways we can work with it as well. So often what I'll do with people, if it's that they're sort of stuck in all these different roles, is we'll get like cards for each one, and we'll write on them everything that they do to when they're in that role. So it might be mum, it might be a teacher. So what's going on when they're wearing that hat. Wife, they might be carer to a elderly relative, all those kind of things, and think, well, what do you do in those roles? And then you're able to see what you're capable of, because you know that you can do it when it's for someone else. So then what we'll do is find the easiest things within some of those and think about how can we turn those on you, because you can do them, because you do them for other people. So how could you turn that on yourself? And then we'll set sort of a task for them to try and give it a go. And again, that would start really easy. And then they go away, give it a go, and then we sort of reflect and we just gradually build. And sometimes just having that accountability can help you take that, because it's like a step out your comfort zone, turning that thing on yourself. So having that in mind, thinking, I need to do it because I'm going to see Billie. And as the week goes on, it's sort of like, I need to do it because it's only 4 days now till my appointment. And it can really drive them to just give it a go. And then they realise that it is okay. And it actually felt really nice. So that's sort of how I tend to work with it in therapy. A lot of it can also be linked to people pleasing and a lack of assertiveness. So I created an online course on basically just learning to be assertive, helping people to realise that assertiveness is very different to being aggressive, that it doesn't mean you're being mean. It doesn't mean you're not taking anyone else's feelings into an account. But that at the moment you're stuck in a place where you're neglecting your own, you're just prioritising the other people's. So that can really help, because if you can be a bit more assertive, you could say no to doing someone else's school run or picking someone else's kids up from school. Because if you're only saying yes because you think, oh, they won't like me if I say no, being able to challenge those beliefs can help. Because if you're struggling with people pleasing, it can really build a lot of resentment, because you lose a lot of time. And that time could be spent doing the things that you want to do. It could be that you then get half an hour at night to read your book because you said no to something that would have filled your evening in a way that you didn't really want it to. So if therapy isn't feasible, the assertiveness course can really help to give you the sort of foundation on how you communicate, so that you can free yourself some time up, that you can take that to-do list that you do in the morning to someone and say, I need help with this. What can you take off me? Rather than thinking, oh, I can't really ask for help because they'll think I'm annoying them or they haven't got time. So yeah, the assertiveness course can really help, because often learning to be assertive ripples through the sort of work we would do in therapy.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that as we were speaking earlier. I think a big part of what we're talking about comes down to having good boundaries and being able to say no to things, which also sometimes we struggle to do because we might be worried about other people think about us. So I think you've hit the nail on the head there. That could be a really great skill to grow in your confidence. But it also connects back to us talking about knowing ourselves, because if we know ourselves and what we need, we'll know what to say yes and no to, won't we? So it's all linked, isn't it? But I can also see what you're saying about therapy. It's not just about being in a total crisis and needing help. It's like getting in there before you get to that point, and it almost like fast tracks that process, having that person to come alongside you to be accountable to. Like you say, you can do this work by yourself, but it's probably going to take you longer, and you might not get to the same depths as you would with someone else who can see it from the outside and like come alongside you and keep you accountable. And I like what you said about making you take that time out for yourself, which sometimes we just won't do, will we, for ourselves? We might mean to, but then other things will get in the way. So I think I can see how it's really powerful, and I think we could all do with it. You know, we could all do with a billion in our lives. But I love that you've got sort of accessible options like the online courses, which are a bit more affordable. So you've got things for all different people, which is fantastic, and I love that about how you practice. So if people would like to chat to you more about this or find out how you can support them with their journey, how can we stay in touch, Billie?
So my main platform, I would say, is Instagram, and I'm Billie Rose _therapy on there. I am on TikTok. I do try and sort of branch out into sort of just spreading little pockets of awareness to little self-help videos, and it's the same username there too. You can find me on Facebook, Billie Rose Therapy and Wellbeing, and my website is billierose.therapy.co.uk, and that's where you can find all the online courses. There's a free resources page on there with just little downloads, different worksheets and things that can be quite useful. The unhelpful thinking habits is so useful. I think everyone should have that on their fridge. It just describes different sort of ways that we think that we often realize we do all of them. There's 12, and I think most people think they do most of them from time to time, and just being able to recognize them can really help. So there's some useful bits on there that are free to access, and then you can also find me on LinkedIn, and that's just Billie Pursglove.
Oh, fantastic. And yeah, definitely recommend giving you a follow, because I love seeing your posts. And I just love your focus on like that sort of holistic well-being and women's wellness. So there's lots of inspiration, and those free resources sound great. And we will put all the links in the notes for the show today. Also, thank you so much, Billie. It's been so great to hear from you. But before you go, would love to hear, just for fun, what you would choose to have for your last meal on earth.
Well, so I'm quite traditional. So I think it would have to be a pork roast dinner with all of the trimmings. So the roast parsnips, roast carrots, cauliflower cheese with loads of cheese, all the good veg, and plenty of gravy.
Amazing. It's a popular one. I haven't had a roast for a while, but it does pop up. But you know, it's just that comfort. It's got everything, hasn't it? And I do love a bit of cauli cheese. Good choice.
Definitely. I think I could eat a bowl of that for a meal.
That would do, 100%. Oh, but it's been so good to talk to you. I think these are really important things to talk about. And like I said, hopefully if you're listening and you're feeling that pressure and that just feeling a bit stuck, we'd just love you to take some time out for yourself, even this week. If you've been listening, take half an hour, just write down the things that you love, like what do you love doing with your time, and take that little bit of time to plan your day, to ask for help, and reach out to us if you need to have a chat about these things. But just know that you're not stuck, that there's people that care about you, there's people that want to help you, and there's hope, and there's lots of exciting things ahead. So just make that space for yourself, because you really matter. So thank you so much for your time, Billie. It's been amazing to chat to you.